need to talk about J.D. Vance's speech on Friday at the Munich Security Conference. And this was amazing. So he is not being responded to very kindly in Europe. Europe is very, very mad at him because God knows you can't tell the truth to Europe. They get very squeamish about truth telling. But that's exactly what J.D. Vance did. The first clip, he calls them out, various different countries on their censorship and their prevention of a concept that they have always long stood by the United States in having admiration for, which is, of course, free speech. They're constantly moving away from that. And J.D. Vance called them out.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. Oh my God. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief.
Unbelievable. So blame the victim.
Perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
Oh my gosh.
Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
He is a different kind of vice president, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He's
God,
just,
is he ever.
Just a glow up from all the ones we've had in the past. He's just completely awesome. Plus, you know what? When it comes to Europe and NATO and all this crap, everybody needs to keep in mind that we and Poland are the only ones who pay 4% of GDP. Mm-hmm. That's it. Everybody else, a bunch of cheapskates. So they are ripping us off. And so
it's their area that needs defending.
Yeah. It's not our responsibility. So it's like when they look to America, it's like they just have taken advantage of us for years. I love that we finally have an administration that's like, no. No.
We've got something to say about it. Right. And he has, he was literally in Germany calling out Germany, and rightly so, because they needed to hear this. He also talked about, he kind of made fun of the fact that there's so many people in Europe who are all bent out of shape, like Democrats here are, about Elon Musk. And here is how he scolded them about it. It was perfect.
Expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Right.
But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
God, he's a man of the people. He really is. What?
Yeah.
I cannot say nicer. There's not enough nice things to say about him. He's the real deal. It's like we've been waiting for somebody like him, and I hope and pray he never changes, but I really don't think that he will.
Yeah. Well, the German, whatever you call the German person in charge, if it's prime minister, chancellor, president, I don't know. But that guy, Olaf something or other, got up on stage and was just like, that's unacceptable. He said to the Congress, what JD Vance said is unacceptable. The problem is it's all true. And so he can find it unacceptable to be called out,
Right.
but he needs to own it because it's exactly what's happening. And we'll show you a report about that in just a second. First, we've got Marco Rubio, also just the best Secretary of State, such a statesman. He's calling out the reaction from Europe, saying, I don't know why everybody's upset. They're supposed to care about freedom of speech too. Here he is.
Allies or anybody be irritated by free speech and by someone giving their opinion. We are, after all, democracies. The Munich Security Conference is largely a conference of democracies in which one of the things that we cherish and value is the ability to speak freely and provide your opinions. Right. And so I think if anyone's angry about his word, they don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point. I thought it was actually a pretty historic speech, whether you agree with him or not. I think the valid points he's making to Europe is we are concerned that the true values that we share, the values that bind us together with Europe, are things like free speech and democracy and our shared history in winning 2 world wars and defeating Soviet communism and the like. These are the values that we shared in common. And in that Cold War, we fought against things like censorship and oppression and so forth. And when you see backsliding and you raise that, that's a very valid concern. We can't tell them how to run their countries. He simply expressed in a speech his view of it, which a lot of people frankly share. And I thought he said a lot of things in that speech that needed to be said. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would be upset about it. People are allowed, you don't have to agree with someone's speech. I happen to agree with a lot of what he said, but you don't have to agree with someone's speech to at least appreciate the fact they have a right to say it, and that you should listen to it and see whether those criticisms are valid. I assure you, the United States has come under withering criticism on many occasions from many leaders in Europe, and we don't go around throwing temper tantrums about it.
Right. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, exactly. You know that like when he gets up on the stage, he's like, he probably has his like ma'am on his ear, especially, and especially with guys that get up after him and say, oh my God, that was not appropriate. You're not supposed to do that. Like this, I don't know. I can't remember the word that he used, but he thought it was unacceptable. She's like, that guy's a dick. Like, he's like could hear in his ears, Meemaw going, don't take that crap. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Right. And the people who scream the loudest, kind of like what Marco Rubio is saying, they're the ones who are guilty of it. It's kind of like what we're seeing with all this, Doge stuff. All the people who are freaking out the most are the ones who are the guiltiest.
Yep, absolutely. And then in that same interview with Marco Rubio, this was with Margaret Brennan, oh my God, how she is still an actual reporter or journalist, I have no idea. But she tried to claim, and of course he promptly shot her down, she tried to claim that the whole reason for the Holocaust essentially is because of speech being used in a way that riled up everybody, I guess. I mean, the way that she says this is so insane. And he was like, no, Margaret, she's getting killed for this on X, you guys. Yeah. And rightly so. Here it is.
Standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
I just read a history.
We don't really care, Margaret. We don't really care.
Do you remember when Face the Nation was actually like a lot? They've had some decent hosts. They've had some, at least I may not agree with everything that they say, but they've at least have some hosts who weren't just flat out stupid like her.
I mean, she's just
dumber than a stick.
Wow.
Yeah. And you could see it in Marco Rubio's face. He was like, I can't believe I have to talk about this garbage with her. Cause let me go ahead and educate you, Margaret. Mm-hmm. You could just tell by his face. He was exhausted by it. Oh my
God. That was.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
That was really, really bad.
Media is, they're trying to get air. You know what I mean? They're just they're grasping at it's a death rattle, you guys. They're dying. It's a dying medium. It is.